This is weird.
This is nice. Yeah.
Welcome, everyone. This is this is the second one of these discussions. What do you call these things? What is this? Am I interviewing you?
Q&A.
Q&A?
Conversation.
With your mom? Conversation.
Yeah.
So I'm sure most of you are aware that my mother wrote a book. Which is, yeah, I think she signed about 300 of them today.
I did.
We're all so excited and happy for her because I don't know if many of you know about my mother's history, but she was a public school teacher for 35 years. Where she taught generations of children to write. She was an English teacher. She was a public speaking teacher. She was a forensics coach. She was a debate coach. She worked in drama. The list goes on.
But I never wrote a book.
But she never wrote a book until she decided, like, oh, I better do it, before I'm 80 years old this year.
Yeah.
You know?
Late bloomer.
But I was just thinking about this. Now I'm on a promo tour with my mother, which sounds funny, but we've done this before. I don't know if you remember this, but in 1997, my mother came on a Foo Fighters promotional trip where,
right.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
Where we started, it was in Europe. We went to London, and then we went to Paris, and went to Italy and things like that. And what I just remembered outside was that everywhere we went, every border we crossed, they never checked us. They always checked my mom.
It's true.
Because I think they thought you were my drug mule or something.
I couldn't get used to it. I didn't think I looked suspicious. I decided, actually, it happens to me a lot. It still happens to me in airports. I'm sorry. I decided that there must be an Irish terrorist that I resemble because I kept getting pulled over. All my suitcases were opened. I was searched, and yeah, they were thorough about it. But I refer to that as my Mother's Day tour. It was one of the most fun because usually when I'd go on tour with David, they play a show at night, and then all the things happen after the show, and we go to dinner and go out and so on and meet people and all of that. But this was a press tour, so he was working all day, and then then people took us to dinner at night. That's what I remember. And we stayed in best hotels. That was really fun. That was sort of my introduction to, ooh, this is good. It's a good life. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot to talk about. I don't really know where to begin because I know the whole story, But along with telling her story, she also told the story of other mothers, Dr. Dre's mother, Gary Clark Jr.'s mother, Adam Levine's mother, Geddy Lee's mother, Michael Stipe's mother, Zach Brown's mother, Randall Lambert's mother. There's a bunch
Kelly
of them.
Clarkson's mother.
Kelly Clarkson's mother.
Amy Winehouse's mother.
It's a whole lot of mothers.
Yeah.
But I think what you found in the book was some common thread or similarities in all of these mothers
Right.
and their experiences. Discuss.
Well, first of all, it was just about the most fun I've ever had going around finding them. First of all, I wrote to them to see which ones would agree to meet me and talk to me. And I love the list I got because they're people whose sons and daughters I really admire. I think they're all top-notch musicians, and they covered so many different genres, and I was happy about that. And most of the mothers hadn't done interviews before. They didn't like being intruded upon, but because we had this bond, we had something in common that was really special. So we just sat down and became friends right away. I made so many friends. We talked about a lot of things we had in common. Some things I found out some amazing things about when the dreams began with all of them. And it was just an amazing similarity to no matter what kind of music they were doing. If you have children, listen up. Between the ages of 12 and 13, they said, it's music. Don't bother me with anything else. It's what I'm going to do. It's my life. I will do it. And there was no getting in the way. And some tried for longer than others, and found out that we were helpless. That was it. So we had a lot of things in common. Most of them are now very joyous, and they're having a wonderful time hearing about and going to shows, and just it's worked out really well, hasn't it? Yeah.
You did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
When I was young, first of all, my mother has a musical background too. She was a vocalist. She was a singer in a group, the Three Bells.
In the 50s, my dears. Yes.
When music was pretty kick-ass. Come on. It was an a cappella group. Mm-hmm. And but one thing I never asked you, now, you loved music and you loved to sing, but did you get the bug, or did you just do it for?
Maybe 10 years later we would have. But this is in the mid-50s. There was not much of a music industry. And there was one group already doing what we did, the McGuire sisters. We were better. But they were famous. And
the apple in the tree, you know what I'm saying?
And honestly, we had no thought about continuing after high school. That was just it. We all went to different colleges, different parts of the world, all lived in different places after that. It never occurred to us to try to do anything after that. It was over when it was over. So that was that. Maybe the music industry then began to blossom, and in the 60s it changed and was more fun and interesting, and maybe if it had been a little later, I don't know. But no, that was my career.
But it never kept you from singing. You were always singing.
Well, there was always music.
Do you remember some of the songs you sang to me as a kid? I haven't asked you that question yet either.
Oh, I do.
Name one.
I remember.
Do you remember? I love you, a bushel and a peck, a bushel and a peck, and a hug around the neck.
That was
a hug. That's all I remember.
The favorite. And there was one also from a comedy show that was a takeoff on. It was Yodel Lady. Oh, I'd sing that to my daughter. Yodel Lady who. You're the fella that rocks me, Rockavella. That was a favorite.
Are you making that up?
No.
I don't remember that one.
I can't believe you don't remember that.
No.
Yeah, you were really little.
Well, when I sort of discovered music with my mother, I grew up in Springfield, Virginia, just out of Washington, D.C. And so we would drive around in my mother's Ford Maverick and listen to AM radio in the 70s, FM radio in the 70s. In the mid-70s, which to me was such a golden age of melody and song, all of that AM gold stuff, like Jerry Rafferty and Andrew Gold and Helen Reddy and Carly Simon and 10cc, stuff like that. That was the music that I first started to fall in love with. And one of the reasons was that my mother and I were driving in the car one day, and You're So Vain by Carly Simon came on, and we were singing it together, and we split into harmony. I mean, I was just singing, and then she sang the high line, and it flipped me out that two people could sing something together in different notes, and how that makes harmony and a chord, you know? And that's where I'm not singing that one in front of you guys now. So I think I was about 6 or 7 years old.
You were really young.
And you talk about that golden age with kids.
Yeah.
How do you encourage or support a kid whose focus has turned from school and from sports and the outside world?
Yeah.
I mean, how did you do it?
Well, I talked with all the mothers about this because it's something that we all faced, and you just have expectations. You think, okay, I know how smart my kid is. I know I have this really bright son, this bright daughter, so he'll do well in school, right? No. The teachers will be just delighted with all. Well, I go to conferences and they'll say, "Oh, there you are. How nice to meet you." No.
Didn't happen, did it, Mom?
And although everyone loved him and they were amused by him constantly, but he wasn't having a very good time. He wasn't successful. He wasn't engaged. He wasn't, and as a public school teacher, and I've addressed this in the book, but I'm sort of afraid to go home. We'll be in Fairfax County in a couple days, and I'm going to really get it from all the people I taught with. But the schools just don't do very well with the artists that are trying to bloom and trying to play and trying to create. They just don't do well because they don't fit into those slots. And they keep trying, and so they're miserable, of course. And so it was and the teachers will say to all of them, so many mothers had the same kind of thing. Dave Matthews' mom went through it, Getty Lee's, all of us. He's not paying attention. He can't focus. He won't sit still. He doesn't know what's going on. He's just not into and yet they come home and pick up their instrument and they're completely focused. And for hours and hours, they're composing, they're listening, they're involved completely and very focused. So somehow you realize that, and then you say, well, yes, that's what we'll go with then. So that's what you do.
There was once at the dinner table, I don't know if you remember this either. This is fun.
I know.
Where you said,
we should have a soundtrack memory.
I think I was
songs.
maybe like about 16 or 17 years old. And you said, David, do you know Michael Mallory? I said, yeah. And you said, he's brilliant. I think he might be a genius. And I didn't tell you until maybe 15 or 20 years later, but he was my acid dealer.
Okay then, folks.
Anyway.
All right.
I never told you that?
No, I don't think so.
Wow.
Well, I've loved this little trip
Isn't
down
this
memory
nice?
lane.
Yeah. It's like group therapy.
Yeah, I think so.
No, I mean, I think it's interesting. Let's talk about some other acid dealers. Not just mine. Maybe someone else's.
Okay.
I have a question about Michael Stipe. Yes. What a brilliant, beautiful human being. How do you think... He was raised in a military family.
Right.
And they moved around a lot.
Yes.
How do you think... Because one of the things that I honestly think that... the core of this book and your story and these stories is how the relationship between a mother and an artist determines their creative output
Right.
or their body of work or whatever it is. How do you think his childhood affected or influenced his music?
I'm not sure. I think certainly the fact that he lived in many places and he was used to traveling the world and he was at ease in lots of different civilizations and kinds of things. But he was really one of the late bloomers. He didn't start as early as most of you did. But I just think that he enjoyed all the places that they went. He had a happy childhood. He also had a very strong relationship with his father. Wow. And so I think that his family upbringing was a little bit different than most of them, but it was a strong, stable family, although his father was in wartime a lot, so that was terrifying to him as a small, very sensitive kid. And I think, all of the artists that I learned about and talked to, I was interested in the history behind them, the mother's history and their history and how that affected them. And in many cases, it was reflected in their lyrics at some point. And Michael wrote a beautiful tribute to his parents at one point that I think it's untitled, and it's about how they're listening to him. It really gets to me. How do you talk about it? Yeah. So it was very sweet. Yeah. But that happened with a lot of them. They picked something up from a background that might have been scary, or that might have, like Geddy Lee's mom was in a Nazi concentration camp, and that comes through in a couple of songs. And Dave Matthews' mother in South Africa, he pulls that through too into his lyrics. So, yeah, the history's there.
Here's a question. There were more than a few mothers that were single mothers, right?
Yes.
And so, how do you think, I know that in our family, being a school teacher, a single mother, raising two children, my mom was a teacher, but then you also worked at Bloomingdale's, and then you worked at
I worked for Surf Pro, carpet cleaning company.
That was pretty amazing.
I measured floors. It was fun. I got to go into really beautiful homes and snoop around. Push my little measuring thing across the floor and say, that'll be $7,000.
Well, I know, how do you think, because I know that influenced my work ethic.
Yeah.
So how do you think that it did the same for a lot of the other?
Well, when I talked to Amy Winehouse's mother, her mother put herself through school and studied to become a pharmacist, and was going to school and was round the clock going to classes, coming home, getting dinner for her kids, then having to go back out to classes. And she was round the clock, and that was her hope, that her daughter would then imitate that work ethic. And that never happened.
Right.
That was far from what Amy had in mind, and I think that really hurt, because she, it was hard for her to be doing that and be away from them and so on. It was a short period, and so I'm happy that because most of the musicians that I learned about and have gotten to know, they're absolutely non-stop workaholics. They never stop. David works all the time. You're never not working. And I think that's why some of them last for more than a year or two, because they don't stop. They're composing and performing and doing press and everything. It's just it's a very demanding, heavy-duty work job.
I think more than anything creative is just a fear of having to return to Shakey's Pizza.
Oh, well, there's that.
Because
you had
only want that job once.
You had a great job in a furniture warehouse, as I recall.
I did. I liked Marlowe's Furniture Warehouse.
Yeah.
It was the largest furniture warehouse in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. And I was the one putting your entertainment center on a truck.
Yeah.
Dr. Dre's mother.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorites.
This is something funny that I have to mention, because to me, this really all started to sink in when I would get phone calls from my mother. I'd say, "How's it going?" And she'd say, "Oh, it's good. I've got this finished, and I got this finished, and I got this finished. It's looking really good." But I have to go. I have a call with Dr. Dre in half an hour. Which is
My
rad.
new best friend, right?
That's so cool. He was born and raised in...
Compton. He was, straight out of Compton.
Right.
If you've seen the movie. Yeah. Yeah.
You don't say. Yeah.
She's one of the most fun people I've met, with all the tragedy behind her and the tough life that she had. She actually wrote her own biography about 8 years before I started with this, and I read it, and tells her whole story. So I knew a little bit about her when I went to meet her, and she's just a ray of sunshine. She's an amazing woman who's so energetic and so nonstop. She's designing clothes right now, and she's already been to culinary school, and she bakes cakes for everyone, and she goes to schools to volunteer to teach good manners to the kids in Compton. It's really important to her that they behave well, and she just doesn't stop. She's really fun.
That's amazing.
You haven't met her yet. I can't wait for you to meet her.
I haven't.
Yeah.
Any of the other mothers musical? I know the Haim
Oh, right.
girls.
Well, Dr. Dre's mom was too.
Oh, was she?
She was in a girl group, and the same thing, and not quite as early, but the Haim mother was. She was on the Gong Show, actually.
What?
Yes, Donna Haim was.
Really?
Yes. She went to an open mic night at a little club in L.A. with some friends, and she loved Bonnie Raitt, and she loved doing this one particular Bonnie Raitt song, something about a blender. I don't remember the whole title, and so after she sang, somebody came up to her and said, "I'm an agent, and I wonder if you'd like to be on TV." She hadn't any intention of that, and he said, "I'm with the Gong Show," and she's absolutely not. That's they just make fun of people, and after he saw her again, I guess he finally talked her into it, and she won the second time she did it. Yeah, she won, and that was the end of her TV career. But she still got some on stage with them.
What did you win on the Gong Show? I don't remember.
Money. It was. She said a couple $1,000s or something. It helped her pay tuition for another couple months. So.
Well, they're an interesting family because not only did they raise one musician, but three. How did it work?
Right.
The father was musical too, right?
Yes, he's from Israel, and he was a drummer, and so they had lots of music in the house all the time. And they had a band when the kids were really little called Rockingheim. And they would play at neighborhood festivals and things. Have you heard of them?
No.
Yes. They'd play at neighborhood festivals and just little things like that. And I guess recently they all got on stage and played again. Yeah.
Wow.
I haven't
Getting the band
seen
back
them.
together.
Yeah, I know. But so they always sang. There was always music in that family, and they were pretty destined, I think, to.
Interesting
do
because
what they're
she was
doing.
a teacher as well, right?
She was an art teacher. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
how did they fare in school?
Actually, they did really well. But you know what they got to do? They got to go to the School for the Arts, and which in LA is very selective. It's very hard to get into. And that's the thing with some communities. I don't know where you're all from, but I came from the huge school system in Fairfax County, one of the biggest in the country, and we don't have a school for the arts. And they closed our really good high school to turn it into School for Science and Technology, which is now, I believe, the #1 school in the country. But they didn't give us a school for the arts. I went to the school board, we all did, several times, and gave speeches about, okay, let's make a deal. You take our school, you make it science and tech. give us the School for the Arts to balance things out a little bit, but hasn't happened yet. So we'll see. Keep working on that. Thank you. Yeah.
Are you going to run for office?
No. I think I'd be. No, it's too late for me. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Come on.
I know. I think maybe you should.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, it looks like
speeches.
anybody can do it these days. I got too many skeletons in that closet.
Yeah.
I don't want to. Mike Mallory will come back to haunt me.
And me.
Gary Clark Jr. He's so awesome, man. He's so cool.
What a genius, right? He's just, I love watching him perform.
Yeah.
I just really, he's played with David several times, so I've been able to see him.
That was great.
Yeah, and his mother resisted for a while, and it was hard. It was so hard. He was so determined, and he picked up the guitar when he was 12, and just played it. He just picked it up, and they said it was just miraculous that he could. It just happened, and then it was all over with at that point. That was just, it was destiny. And I just saw her a couple weeks ago. They came up to L.A. to see a show, and she said to me, first, we went out to have drinks together, and she said, "Don't you still love going to their shows?" And I said, "Yes." And she and her husband just go as often as they can. Yeah, it's still great. They're having a really good time. But she fought a long fight. But then when it was time, and she said, "Okay, this is it," she became his accountant. And she actually went to a bookstore and bought a book called How to Make a Rock and Roll Record or something. She learned how to burn CDs. She learned how to do the agent management thing. She learned how to make a website. She got him started. She launched him. And then she said, "Okay, now somebody else has to take over." And she's still his accountant. But yeah, and she's very shy about it. She doesn't claim anything at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, one of my favorite parts of the book is the last vignette, the last chapter in the book. It's called "What's Some Other to Do?" And it basically, well, explain, Mom.
Well, I was at that point. I'd already talked about David and all the others and what they were like growing up and how much they had in common. And then I realized that a lot of people are reading this book and they, well, I hoped, and they don't all have little rockers running around, but they've got creative kids. They've got kids who might be a little different and who are driving everybody crazy, quite frankly. They're just, they're so high energy. They're getting diagnosed with all kinds of letters after their names and put in, categories. And so what's a mother to do? What do you do when you've got a kid and you know there's something very special going on and you just want to tap into it and you need to find out what it is? And so it's all about how you try to go about doing that. And it was a journey. And so I wrote about what that's like. And I felt like I'm not really qualified, but okay, I'll give some advice. So I did.
I'd say that you're more than qualified, Mom.
Thank you.
I mean, when I was young, most of my friends, I think maybe hated their fucking parents. I'm not sure. Excuse me, I also have a potty mouth.
No thanks to me.
Yeah. I've never heard my mother say one swear word in her entire life, by the way. Not one. Not the F word or the S word or the X, whatever, all the words. She's never said one of them.
I'm saving it.
You know what I mean? Shit, now I forgot what my question was. My mother and I always had a really close relationship because we always talked and we always communicated, and she shared so much with me, a lot of life with me. We went to jazz clubs together and we went to go see concerts together. We did fun stuff.
Yeah, we did.
For nothing.
Right.
Like the trip to New York.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she wanted us to see New York. And this is 1980 or 79?
It's the year that MTV started, whenever that was. And
81,
I
huh?
agreed. Our school had a really great girls' soccer team. And something horrible happened to the coach. I don't know what. And they were desperate. They needed a soccer coach. Well, I didn't know how to coach soccer. But I'd been to a heck of a lot of soccer games. And so they begged me to be the coach. And actually, I wasn't going to be coaching. They had a college girl really doing the coaching. I was sort of the babysitter and chaperone. And so I agreed to do it because they would pay me, I think it was $4,000 all at once at the end of the year. And so I thought, ooh, that's a gold mine. I can go to New York. And so at some point in the fall, the, what's the name of the hotel where the Astor Bar is? It's a really good hotel. And they had an ad in the Washington Post for weekend rates that were, I think it was $39 a night or something. Wow. It was unbelievable. So I called and made reservations for us for right as the minute school was out. And we drove to New Jersey to a friend's house. And then we parked the car there because this is the cheap route. This is what you do when you don't have any money. You've got $4,000 to.
Was it $4,000 or $400, Mom?
No, it was a couple thousand.
Really?
It might have been two. I don't know. Didn't matter. We worked it out. We stretched it, and so we parked the car there. And then we took the bus into New York. Went to the fancy hotel. We each bought new clothes. We had nice new outfits. You had a green shirt, I remember that.
It was an Izod.
A little
Continue.
Izod shirt, yes. So we looked nice. And I had bought the book, New York on $10 a Day, and it told me that what you do when you're especially in this hotel, is you go to the bar at night because they have really substantial hors d'oeuvres. And all you have to do is order a drink, and then you're good for the night. So
it sounds delicious, substantial hors d'oeuvres.
Right. There was lobster and crab meat, I remember. And we had a wonderful time. We saw a Broadway show. We went to see all the sights. And it was a really memorable long weekend, which I know.
It was great.
It was.
I loved it.
And yeah, and it was really brave, I think. Now I don't even remember I didn't even have a credit card then. I remember I got to this, I wish I could remember the St. Regis. That's the hotel. It's nice, you know? I didn't even have a credit card. I had a Sears credit card. That was my only credit card. Doesn't get you very far at the St. Regis. And I had to, once they found that out when I showed up at their desk, I had to really talk myself into it. It was the debate coach in action that moment. But yeah, it was a great moment.
We had wonderful vacations as kids. We were talking about one earlier today with someone. Our family is from Ohio, from Eastern Ohio, Youngstown and Niles. And,
there you go.
And we were just outside of Washington, D.C. So in order to visit with our grandparents, we would always meet halfway at this exit off the Pennsylvania Turnpike called Breezewood, if anybody knows where Breezewood is. And there was this little motel called Breeze Manor that we would go, just this one-level motel with a pool, and you could see the mountains in the background. We would spend the weekend there. I was explaining that to someone today, and they said, "What did you do?"
It was a resort to
we
us.
like watched the Carol Burnett show and eat KFC, and it was great. Back to the last chapter, really quick, and the relationship between a parent and a kid. I'm a parent now too, and so I've learned all of my lessons from you, not from this book, but from you.
Yeah.
And so all of these little shreds of wisdom that you've given to me over the years. One of the coolest things that my mother ever said to me, she said, we were talking about something. We were talking about growing up in rural Ohio in the 50s. And I asked my mother if she ever felt different or peer pressured or anything like that. And my mother said, when I was young, I never compared myself to other people. And I honestly think that's one of the most excellent, beautiful, profound pieces of advice anyone could give their child, is not to compare yourself to someone else, just to feel comfortable being yourself. And I just mentioned that because I love you and I don't remember what I was talking about.
That's very nice.
I know, gone.
That's very
That's
sweet.
it.
Yeah.
See? Attention span. Like that.
Yeah.
You gonna write another book?
Oh, I need a nap. I think so. I don't know. I've joked around about it. Honestly, I waited way too long to start on volume 1. And
I disagree. I think
really?
this is happening right at the right time.
Yeah. I thought of putting out a record. No, I'm just kidding about that. No, well, I've been asking for years. No.
You have not asked me.
I said I wanted to do backups.
Right.
So far, they haven't hired any backup singers. I don't know. I love the process of writing. I must recommend it to those of you who are, probably a lot of you out there, writing. And
what advice do you have?
Oh, enjoy it, I guess. Take your time with it. Also, I advise writing fiction because it's got to be easier than research, fact-checking, double-checking, going back, being worried about, ooh, can I say this? And I thought about that later. I thought, why didn't I just make everything up? That's got to be easier. So maybe that's my next thing. So I don't know. I loved it, though. I love the whole process of writing, and I love revising. I guess that's the English teacher kind of thing. And I'd been looking at other people's writing for so long. It was fun to look at my own critically and, put something down for a week and come back and say, what, did I write that? And sometimes that was nice and sometimes it wasn't. But I enjoyed the whole process. So... And I had plenty of time. I was retired. I had lived alone and had nobody saying, you have to be here to do this. And nothing got in the way. So that's a luxury most people don't have that I was lucky to have. Yeah.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think we have questions from
we do.
Other people.
Okay, good.
As well.
We do. But first, let's give a round of applause to these guys.
Thank you. Good. Thank you all.
You'll get to clap again. So we'll clap again at the end. But for now, I have some questions that were submitted via social media. So if you guys wouldn't mind indulging. Tony asks, who was the person for this project that you and Dave wanted most to interview? Did you have a certain person that you were looking forward to hearing about more than others in particular?
Well, Dave had nothing to do with it, but
Yeah, well, we did talk early on about who. I started out just making a list of people whose music I really liked and that I thought they might be interesting. I didn't know anything about the Mothers when I started out, and I didn't have any. I really started out without expectations and agenda and itinerary and all of that. I just sort of jumped in, and I guess, well, you had told me about Geddy Lee's mom because when you did the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with them, you called me from there and said, I just met Mary, and you should meet her. You guys would be good friends, and he was right. We really were. So I knew I wanted to meet her, and I was just curious about a lot of people. It took a while before I thought, can I call Dr. Dre's mom? Do you think she would talk to me? And that turned out to be really one of the most fun times. And so, I don't know. And then Tom Morello's mom is phenomenal. What a story she has. She's 92, and she was one of the early activists in the anti-censorship movement. She just went out on her own way before Tom was politically active. She was out doing this and just fearless, and still is, quite a feisty lady, if you recall. Tell them how she introduced her son's band.
I'm pretty sure that she would get up on stage and say, "Rage Against the Fucking Machine," or something like that.
Yeah.
It was something.
After she
like
came
that.
across to the mic in the middle of the stage with her walker.
Yeah, she walked.
And she starts out by saying, "Hi, I'm Mary Morello. I'm 92 years old."
Yeah.
And then she,
The place goes nuts.
yeah. So it was just wonderful. I loved talking to all of them. So,
Not to get off topic, something that I just remembered that might refer to what we were talking about before. Throughout this process, when my mother said that she had an idea to write a book, she'd say, "Here's my idea. What do you think?" I think this is a great idea. And then she would go and meet with, an agent or a publisher or someone, and they would say, "Well, I'm not really sure that's the idea. Maybe this is the idea." And then my mother would call me back, and she would say, "I'm not so sure. They think it should be like this." And I would say, "Fuck them. This is your book." And then
Yeah.
she'd go to the next person, and the next person would say, "Well."
they said nobody wants to hear about the Mothers. They want to hear about
believe
the
that?
rock star. And David said,
Yeah.
everybody's already written about them.
There's 100
What are you going to
books
say? So,
Right.
thank you.
Exactly. And so that was the thing, is that I saw so many parallels between that and the music industry, that you've got a band and a record company says, "I think you're great." And they sign you sign a contract, and they're like, "Okay, well, we'd like to change everything now." And so, all of that just to say that for anyone that's considering doing something like this,
Right.
that really following through with your initial idea and sticking with it and sticking,
And I
to your
really
guns.
did know that you had done it your way, and you said, do it your way, and don't listen. And that, for once in my life, because I'd grown up listening to everybody and taking everybody's advice, and this time I didn't. And I'm really glad.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Jake asks, did you ever feel like any of the other mothers were holding back embarrassing stories of their children, or stories that might not have painted their children in the best of light?
I did wonder about that. And I think, well, there were a few times. I told them that when they wanted to go off the record, they could. So we did tell some secrets that didn't quite make it in. But didn't want to sever any relationships forever. But most of them were really forthcoming. We were so comfortable with each other, first of all, because when you meet people that you have everything in common with, and you're meeting them at a late stage in life, it's just so refreshing. Oh, here's a friend I never knew I had. And so we talked really easily. And it was, I made really good friends. But I don't know, maybe the next book should be all the deep, dark secrets that I left out. Yeah.
We touched on this a little bit earlier in the conversation, but I wonder if you could speak to it a bit more. Nicole asks, had you not been such a supportive and encouraging parent, do you think Dave would have taken a more traditional path? Would he now be Dave the accountant? Or was he so headstrong and determined?
There's a concept.
Yes. She says, as the mother of 2 teenagers, I'd like to hear your thoughts about allowing your child the freedom to pursue a dream, even when the odds to achieve great success appear perhaps stacked against him.
I know, I heard that from people. They said, it's really tough. Very few people make it. And he never talked about making it. That was the thing. That's something different now, I think. David never said, I want to be rich and famous, ever. Those words never...
Well, I did.
Oh, I wasn't listening. Sorry. Everything we said is not true. You hear kids today say, rich and famous, but it was only about playing music. I want to play music. So that was what the story was, and that's where, and we all mothers that were facing this realized we were helpless to that. That's the way it's going to be. So that was the end of the story for most of us.
And the beginning, I guess.
And exactly, right, yeah.
Dawn asks, how did you reconcile your beliefs as a teacher with your beliefs as a mother? I teach and have a son who's a bright young guy, but he's just not a student, and it can be a little bit tough sometimes.
I'm really getting it up here tonight.
Yeah.
Not about you.
Mom,
I think she's a teacher.
I'll hand this one to you.
Okay. It was sad. It was tough. It was. I still get upset about it that some kids are having a hard time. I had a lot of really creative kids, and in all my different classes, and I thought I could figure out ways to. I had one kid in a school who it was a terrible school, and he was very unhappy and hated school, and he only came to my class every day. I know. Well, he liked to write, and he was an okay writer. He wasn't a genius writer, but he felt good there. He felt happy, and so he'd cut in the morning, come to my class, and cut the rest of the day. And when I found that out, I was deeply honored for one thing, but I didn't know what to do about it. But it's just, I gave up after a while. Somebody's going to have to solve the problem. I can't do it, but it's a terrible problem that there are kids that just aren't tapping into, that we're not tapping into anything they have to offer, and they have a lot. So it's the battle goes on.
Wilson asks, is there a rock bottom moment from Dave's career that you endured together that you might be willing to share with us? How have you managed obstacles like that in the past?
Well, I guess it's the obvious
Yeah, it would be when Kurt
time.
died.
Yeah. And that was just the depth of sadness, of course, and expectation. That time was cut off. That was over. Kurt was gone. That was hard. So David came home, and
Well, I think the thing for us is that it really brought our family together.
yeah, I think so too.
Because up until that point, everything had seemed just kind of like a fantasy, you know? It went
so
from,
fast.
and it happened really quickly. That when that happened, I did what I had always done whenever I felt overwhelmed with everything. I would just go back to Virginia. And but that's got to be it, I think.
Yeah. It took a little while for everything to come back, for your voice to come back, your music. But it did. So, got through. And, yeah, just unforgettable, sad time. But, you know, and I did a short piece about his mom in the book. We didn't do the traditional interview, but we had conversations about it. And she said she wanted me to write certain things, just a few certain things. I did exactly what she asked. So that's what's there.
Ginger asks, how did it feel to be in the Breakout video and to flip the bird? You did a great job.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh, that was so much fun. And
She didn't know how to do it.
I know.
In her scene, she was
I had
sitting
to
in
be
a car.
assisted.
So we had to put her hand in this position. And she held it there until it was time for her to actually do it.
I know. But I did it.
She did it.
I was proud. Yeah. That was really, really fun. I know I haven't been asked since, though. I don't know.
You can bust it out anytime, Mom.
This is our final question. Robin asks, as someone in the music industry for 12 years on the label side and now as a journalist, my mother was upset when I first got my start. Then throughout the next 8 years, she would call me before every event because she was worried. Did you go through that? How did you handle hearing about crazy reports from around the world while Dave was touring, especially when he broke his leg? He may be an adult, but he'll always be your baby. That's what my mom always said.
Yeah. The broken leg one was really hard because he was in Sweden and I was in LA, and they kept playing it over and over and over, and then I saw him go on stage right back, and they're holding his leg together while he finished the show. I thought, he's in shock. He's out of his mind. And it was awful. But he devised the great throne. And yeah. So
Wow.
he just continued. He just went right back on tour.
You know, my favorite one, which I don't know if you're going to remember, I was in Australia. This is ages ago. I was in Australia on a tour called The Big Day Out, and it was a traveling tour with a lot of the bands that it went, yeah. And so we were in this area called the Gold Coast for a few days, and we had a few days off. So Taylor and I decided to rent these little scooters, these moped things. So we rent these mopeds. So we're riding them around this coastal town. It's like Fort Lauderdale of Australia. And then, whatever. I took it to the gig and I drove it back. I got stopped at a sobriety checkpoint and I got a DUI on a fucking moped. I mean, the thing was like, it was barely a motorized, it had pedals. And so,
Not very rock star-like.
at all. And there's one road to get back to the Gold Coast from the place we had played, and there was 60,000 people there, and they're all watching me get carted away. I get to jail. Everyone in jail was from the show, like, "Good on you, Dave! Good on Dave!" And so, but anyway, the whole time I was in jail, I thought, "Oh shit, I gotta call my mom." Because if she hears about this from somebody else before she hears about it from me. So I remember I got bailed out and went back to the hotel and immediately called my mom and said, "Hey mom, what's up?" She's like, "Hi, how's Australia?" I'm like, "It's really good." I said, "Look, I gotta tell you something. I just got out of jail." She said, "For what?" And I said, I got pulled over on a moped. And you were laughing hysterically. I don't know if you remember that at all.
I think the lyrics from I've Got Another Confession to Make, maybe is that where that happened?
I wrote it right then and there. That's where it came from.
Yeah, it was pretty funny, actually.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, everybody. That was really fun. Thanks a lot. Miss Virginia Grohl.
What a nice group. Yeah.